Hello, Internet. I'm Matt.
I'm Monster Punter.
And this is the Parallax Scrolling Podcast, where we give you our perspective on video games and the news that affects them. Now, it's been a bit. It's been like maybe 2 weeks since we really had a chance to do an actual episode. We did do the Monster Hunter beta conversation, which was fantastic in my opinion. But
you might be a little biased on that one.
Just a little bit, yeah. But unfortunately, don't have any comments on that one. So if you guys have not heard that one yet, I highly encourage you to listen to that one and give us some feedback, because we're excited to talk about that game and what's going to happen in the future with it. So,
yeah.
Otherwise, how's your time been since we've last been?
It's amazingly still very busy with work. There's like a lot of stuff to do. People are trying to cram things into a short period of time here, and of
course,
it's actually been very stressful. Also, I'm buying a house, which is also very stressful, and just all those things together. You know, it's been I've been living off cortisol.
Yeah, that's bad. Trust me.
I live off cortisol almost all year round now.
Yeah, no, that's terrible. Don't do that.
It is what it is.
Okay.
But no, as far as like video games and stuff are concerned, I've been still playing Metaphor Refantasio.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's an excellent game and definitely one of the great games this year that I think deserves a lot of attention, and I think a lot of people who like RPGs, you should at least give it a try. There is a demo. I encourage everybody to play the demo.
Okay.
Also played some MechWarrior 5 Clans. It's a good game. I still hate the clans. That's where I kind of stand on it. The Galaxy Commander, how smug and everything he is. It's just like, can I just punch you in the face now? Is that okay? That would be awesome. But I know this is going to go into some territory. Not many people know about BattleTech lore whatsoever. But Comstar is involved right now, and whenever Comstar gets involved, bad things happen. So I'm kind of, for once in my life, I'm kind of rooting for Comstar. Really weird. Anyway, yeah. Other than those are the main games I've played.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, life has been stressful on this side of things too. Just various health things that don't involve me. The most health thing that I've had to deal with is I just got a new filling in recently, and it wasn't even that big a deal. So I'm doing great. But otherwise, everything else is stressful. But as far as video games go, I actually do have a lot to talk about. I ended up. I'm going to save the one game. I'll talk about Unicorn Overlord more in a second, because it's actually going to link into our last comment that we have, our latest comment we have. But I got to play Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, and I played it through completely. Or not completely, I beat it. And yeah, it's fun. It's cute, it's simple. But at the same time, some of the boss fights and puzzles are a little extra challenging. Especially if you don't get the proper echoes to solve things. And echoes are basically like copies of enemies or objects in the world that you could recreate.
Standard puzzle game stuff, right?
Yeah, pretty much. But this is like, I'm gonna I'm gonna create a thwomp, and I'm gonna use it to squish people, like that kind of stuff. You got to figure it out.
You get thwomps in a Zelda game.
There's an enemy that's like a thwomp, and apparently it's really, really useful, and I never got it because I didn't think you could get it, because in order to get the monsters you have to kill them, and I couldn't kill this one. So apparently I was doing it wrong, and there's a way to kill it, and then you can take its echo, and it's like game busting, I guess.
That's probably why it's hard to get then.
Yeah. But otherwise, yeah, the game was fun. I heard people talk about how it connects more of the Zelda games together, and how it's got extra lore, and it's such a big deal. And I'm like, really? This game is so separated from all the other Zelda games. Like,
I never really understood the Zelda lore. Like,
there
I
is
feel like
Yeah.
I granted I've been disconnected from Zelda games in general for a little while now,
Right.
but they feel like separate games and they stand on their own.
Most of them are separate, but they're more like hundreds or thousands of years apart from each other.
Yeah,
This one
I mean,
this one sounds like it's
like,
in a completely different timeline.
how is it always? I guess I don't know enough, so excuse my insolence, so to speak, or
How dare
naivete. But like, why is it always Link and Ganon if it's across this huge timeline? In Zelda, it just seems really weird to me. Like,
Well, the best
speaking
way
from
to
area from complete ignorance, really.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like it has to be cobbled together in a unorthodox way to make people feel like it, to give people meaning to something. I don't know.
the best way I can describe it as briefly as possible is Ganon is always Ganon. It's just that Ganon is the Demon King. But every time that the Demon King Ganon tries to take over Hyrule, there is someone born of the lineage of Link who actually happens to be named Link, who is the chosen hero to fight Ganon when he resurges. Same with Zelda. Zelda's also part of that. There's always a Zelda in the lineage, kind of thing.
And that's why I feel like it's cobbled together.
Yeah, it is complicated. You just need to know that this game, I don't feel is fully connected to the other games, but it's still fun enough that it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I feel like probably Mario and Sonic are the same way, but I love the Sonic games.
Sonic far less. Those games are really connected.
Okay, well, I'll take your word for it.
All the 3D Sonics, actually, all the Sonic games are connected. It's all the 3D Sonics are part of one iteration. All the 2D Sonics are part of one iteration, but then the Sonic Generations games make them connected. They tie them together.
Okay.
Yeah. So that one's different. But otherwise, I have to take about a few moments here, a good chunk of time, to talk about another game I played. I went back to Vampire Survivors on Halloween because they released the Ode to Castlevania DLC, and boy howdy am I going to talk about it. It is so freaking cool. I can't, just thinking about it is exciting, and playing the game makes me want to go back and play the other Castlevania games on top of this. Like I finished like a run in Vampire Survivors, and then I want to pick up one of the different Castlevania games and just play it. Every character, every major player in the Castlevania universe is a playable character in this DLC.
It makes it an awfully big DLC.
Oh, it's huge. It costs almost as much as the main game, so instead of $5, it's $4. But it is the biggest map by far, and it has enough content in it to equal the main game.
Yeah, based on the number of characters and the lineage of Castlevania, that doesn't surprise me whatsoever.
Oh yeah, and the only Castlevania games that are not part of the DLC are the Lords of Shadow.
Rightfully so.
Rightfully so. Like
the first one was good. The second one,
the first game was amazing.
Not so good. Yeah, the first game.
Yeah.
Oh, the second game is such a tragedy.
Well, okay. Let's be honest here. The first game was awesome. The second game, being Mirror of Fate for the DS, was garbage. And then Lords of Shadow 2, which is technically the third game, is also garbage.
And then no matter what you say, the fact that Castlevania 64 made it in there doesn't. That's another bad one in my opinion.
It's definitely rough, but I actually like that it's in there, and because some of the characters in there were actually pretty cool, and they're in there, and it's fun. And the other day, like I think it was yesterday, I managed to unlock the final character, who is literally the most expensive character in the entire, like, not just the DLC, but like the entire game. He's expensive.
Okay.
He's kind of busted, and it makes sense. It's like it's one of those, like, this is cool, but I would have much rather fought this guy than actually play as this guy. That kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. But I will say,
no spoiler-free last person in.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of spoiler-free, there is there are 30 bosses to this DLC, and you can summon them. You can summon them by standing on, like, the sigils in the ground. That's on top of the ones that show up during the minute markers. Like, every minute there's a new boss. So there's those, and then there's the 30 special bosses that show up throughout special spots throughout the whole map. And it's intense. It's awesome. I love it. There is a final boss that you cannot get to unless you play one particular person. And yeah, well, it makes sense the way the DLC is laid out, because, like, so the character unlocks are blocked off into thirds. Like, you're shown the first third of characters and going through the process to unlock them all.
Okay.
And then once you unlock the final character, you take that character to the throne room in Castlevania, and that begins the final boss fight, which is epic. I love it. Just so cool.
Okay.
And this is I don't think this is a spoiler, but during the middle of the boss fight, you start hearing the second track from Symphony of the Night. For those of you who don't,
music in Castlevania has been great forever, really.
Yes. So for those people who do not know, on the Castlevania Symphony of the Night PS1 disc, if you put it in a regular CD player, it told you there were 2 tracks. The first track is the game itself, so you don't play that one. But if you play the second one, the voice actor who was Alucard gives you a brief message, and then there's some music. They put it in the DLC. It's awesome. But once you beat that, then you unlock the second third of characters, and then once you get all of those, you then unlock the third set of characters, and it's wild, and it's so much fun. And some of the characters, I'm like, I was not expecting this character. Like, here's a character I will spoil because otherwise people wouldn't understand who it is. I don't even think you would know who this is initially. Quincy Morris. Okay. Quincy Morris is an unlockable character.
Okay.
For anyone who's ever played the Sega Genesis Castlevania Bloodlines, the main characters are Eric Lecard and John Morris. Quincy Morris is John's father, and he is one sentence in the booklet.
Yeah, they went overboard a bit then.
Yes, they did. And I'm telling you, it's so good. It's so good. I love it. I love it so much. But yeah, so I got to play through that, and I'm still loving that. The only thing here, most minor of nitpicks, considering how much is given to us for how much money we paid for it. Yeah. You can unlock the ability to invert maps in Vampire Survivors naturally. If you invert the Castlevania map, the only thing it does is change colors.
Okay, well,
that's it. I mean, it's a minor nitpick, but it's like, oh man, being able to go through the inverted castle again would be such a cool thing. But I also understand how much content's already here, and I appreciate what I'm given,
Yeah.
So, but right. Yeah. Other than that, I got one more game I've played, but we're going to talk about it here in a second because I got to go back to comments. I still need to find a jingle or something for that. I don't know, but Yeah, that's it right there.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because it's
How about never do that again?
it's as overwhelming as we are. Uh, anyways, this comment comes from off of episode 67. It comes from that one dude. So it's 2 weeks old. I do apologize, but again, it's just the way things have gone. But that one dude writes, "Hope you guys had a happy Halloween. Hearing you guys talk about Unicorn Overlord makes me want to give it a try, and I see it has a demo too. I have never played a Vanillaware game, but I always wanted to give them a try because the artwork is gorgeous in all their games."
It is definitely that.
Yeah. No, so the other game that I played and beat, I finished Unicorn Overlord, and that game is beautiful.
It certainly is.
As far as should you give this game a shot, the one thing you need to know going into it, and I put that in the reply also, is that as long as you're okay with not controlling the units while they fight, it's a great game.
You could look at it more as like, hey, I am more of a general moving my units around and they fight. You know,
but some people are used to like a tactics game where you select the unit and then you select what they do specifically.
Yeah. But it's more like higher level, I should say, really. And yeah, it's about team construction and how you build your groups of units too.
Oh, absolutely. Some of my units were just disgusting, and then some of them really needed me to keep working on them.
Yeah.
But
so there's some characters that if you get them certain abilities, it's really, really strong. So.
Oh yeah. Well, there's different ways to pull it off too, like just different weapons give different abilities.
Yeah.
And we talked about Unicorn Overlord in the past, but just wanted to throw that out there that the game is beautiful. Don't get me wrong.
That one dude, just give the demo a try. It doesn't cost anything. You'll know enough about the battle system and everything at that point to make the determination if you want to continue to play it.
And honestly, that can be said for just about any game. If the game has a demo and you're curious about it, play the demo. Just always play the demo, because then you'll know for sure if you're gonna like it or not.
Yep.
So thank you, that one dude. We appreciate that comment. And if you want to leave us a comment, please feel free to do so in the section down below. And while you're at it, like, comment, subscribe, appease the algorithm so that we may one day make some money off of this so that Monster can afford his house. That's a heck of a shill there, isn't it?
Oh man, it's a lot of stress buying this house, right? So.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got some news stories we're going to go over, and we don't have a whole ton of time tonight to record, so we're going to do what we can. So let's just get right into this. First story, it's very interesting. It could, depending on how you look at it, and depending on how much of a fanboy you are, this could be either a good thing or a bad thing. But Sony is reportedly in talks to acquire From Software's owner, Kadokawa. So most of these stories come from, aside from like one or two, come from the Video Game Chronicle, because we love that website. But yeah, so Sony is thinking about, is currently talking with Kadokawa about purchasing them. So the big thing to know about this is that obviously Kadokawa owns From Software, and so they're all the Soulsborne games, but they also own a game. They purchased, what was the name of the company? Oh, there it is. They purchased Acquire, and Acquire is the Tokyo studio known for Octopath Traveler, Octopath Traveler 2, and the new Mario and Luigi Brothership.
Yeah. They've been hired by a lot of different companies, so they've made games for Capcom, and obviously that last one is for Nintendo.
And they made well, and the Octopath Traveler was for Squeenix, so there's some good stuff, like. So if Kadokawa gets bought by Sony, that's where my concern comes in. Like, is that a cool thing? It could be. but I'm also
Yeah.
worried about it.
Yeah,
You know?
I mean, I I wasn't necessarily against like Microsoft buying EA, but I'm kind of over it. I think I guess it's my Microsoft's going to put their games on all their systems now. There's no red line, which is was something that was said recently, but Sony isn't that way, and they own like a lion's share of the
Well,
anime market in the United States already. Buying Katakawa just makes that even bigger.
yep.
Um, all these Soulsborne games are. I don't know if it's niche anymore. It's getting. I don't know if I would call it completely mainstream, but it's definitely a lot more than it was, say,
The
5 years ago.
the water is diluted. That I think is something that you can safely say. The water
Yeah.
the water of Soulsborne is diluted. There's so many companies that now do this style of gaming.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing. That's not a terrible thing to say, but it is just like. But Sony acquiring the big dog in that genre. I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, I think that we need to be more mindful of consolidations nowadays.
Yeah. And speaking of not only to be mindful of consolidations, to be mindful of their money. And you know who wasn't mindful with their money? Warner Brothers.
Oh man, no, they weren't.
I had to try and force that segue in there just a little bit, just like get in there. Okay. Yeah. So, in a recent, I forget what you call those, the stockholder meetings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever they're called. I'm not important enough to know what those are called. Anyways, Warner Brothers Games, in their recent meeting, basically pointed out that they had a $300 million deficit from their games. And they pointed it directly at two games. They pointed it at Suicide Squad, which was, let's be honest, that's not a big surprise.
Yeah.
But they also pointed it at multiverses. And I think it's weird how this is backfiring, because companies are getting upset like, oh, this game was supposed to be like a cash cow and just make us all the money, and instead we're losing money on it because we've for the past 20 years people have been making video games and then making extra transactions, and we thought that was the way to make money, and people are learning that's not it anymore. That business model is not working.
I think like they're with multiverse in general, just what I've seen of it.
Mm-hmm.
They basically tried to do Smash Brothers for their character portfolio.
Oh, absolutely.
And it didn't work as well. I think mostly because people view these things as disparate things, meaning separate. Where like it works for Nintendo because Nintendo has this roster of games and you have the Nintendo fan that plays all these games, and honestly, when they get all put together, it's something cool. But like Batman and Tom and Jerry, I mean those are I don't think people would necessarily get it so much.
Honestly, that's not the main issue, and I read up on it a little bit better. The reason why Multiverses itself was not doing well is because there was like maybe a handful of characters you could play for free.
Yeah.
And every other character requires you to pay for them. Now with Smash Brothers, yeah, they had DLC expansions, but they had like I think 10 characters out of their 40-50 character lineup that you had to pay for. It's a big difference.
Well, you had to pay for the game up front too, so that's a big difference.
Right, but it's in comparison, that's what people look at. They look at the extras you have to buy.
Yeah, I mean, but I guess in a sense, they're viewing this as a free-to-play game. That's what happens when you do this, and so people want free to play norms. Like I haven't played multiverses, so somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but if there's no way to get these characters other than through cash, then that doesn't follow the traditional free to play model where you can at least earn the characters through playing with a different sort of in-game currency. Now, all your skins and everything, that's usually where they monetize it. But the characters themselves,
there is a new feature that Player First Games is the ones who actually make multiverses. They're actually putting in a system called Fighter Road, which allows you to earn all the characters for free.
Yeah, so okay, that makes more sense now.
Right, it's getting implemented, but it's getting implemented 2 years too late?
Probably. And again, I still stand by my previous comment. I just think some of these franchises are just not normally associated as being with Warner Brothers, generally speaking. I think, this was 40 years ago. Maybe it's a different story because Warner Brothers was a much stronger brand at that point. They're not as strong a brand anymore.
I would say, because you still had Shadows of Mordor, which came out within the past 10 years.
Yeah.
So that series did really well. So Warner Brothers Games has the ability to put out good games. The problem here is that they focus too much on trying to get that extra cash by doing something which is widely perceived as dishonest.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I still think when you play the Lord of the Rings games, you're playing because it's for the Lord of the Rings franchise, not because Warner Brothers had any sort of involvement for it. You don't see Warner Brothers think, oh, hey, that I should probably play that game, the Warner Brothers game. No, that's my point.
Yeah.
No.
I can see that. Regardless, they're not making it to the Game Awards. Hey, another segue. So we're actually going to talk about the Game Awards here for a bit because we got the nominees come out recently. But before we do, there was a bit of interesting news connected to the Game Awards that's going to link into what we're going to talk about. So the Game Awards has confirmed, as of I think a couple days ago, that DLC, remakes, and remasters will be eligible for Game of the Year. Let me say that again, because that is the dumbest sentence I've ever said. The Game Awards confirms that DLC, downloadable content, remakes, and remasters will be eligible for Game of the Year.
How do I put this? There's categories for that already. They should be in those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think a DLC where you have to play a whole nother game to get to the DLC should be eligible for Game of the Year.
Right. Exactly. There should be the Game of the Year should be a game, and it should have been a game that came out this year initially.
Yeah, but let me put on my conspiracy hat or tinfoil hat, whatever you want to call it.
Just don't stand near the microwave.
I think that if I was to be the conspiracy theorist, I would say they did this to bring attention to the Video Game Awards more so than anything else.
Possibly.
And assuming that take is true, which I base it on completely nothing,
right?
Then I think it's just a bad precedent. And again, it's their awards. I guess they could do whatever they want,
right?
But, I have the right to not really agree with their direction still, and withhold my viewership should I choose. I obviously will have to watch it because of we make these videos here. But if I was a regular person,
so my conspiracy theory, my tinfoil hat is that they didn't feel they had enough games for Game of the Year this year. And so that's why they're like, oh, we're going to start adding in remakes and DLC because we think everything should be eligible.
I
But
think there's plenty of games to choose from this year.
I think there is too, but I think they don't believe so. But you know what? Let's take a look at the list. Let's just jump right into the next section, which is just talking about the gamer awards. So, for Game of the Year, we have Astrobot, Balatro, Black Myth Wukong, all games that came out this year, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and Metaphor ReFantazio.
Okay, so I will defend Final Fantasy VII Rebirth only because
It's not the same game.
it's not this. Yeah, it's the remake is so dramatic that it's not the same thing,
Okay.
and so I think that one's fine.
I think
Astrobot is totally deserving and
Yeah.
probably my game of the year at this point.
I've yet to touch Black Myth Wukong, though, and it's supposed to
I
be
have not
amazing.
played that either.
Yeah.
I know it's supposed to be really good. I have not played it.
Yeah.
And of course, Metaphor ReFantazio I'm in the middle of. But it is it's a good game.
Yeah. But Shadow of the Erdtree should not be on that list.
No.
And I think they're doing that for popularity's sake. So
Yeah.
that's just my opinion on that. All right, so we're not going to go through every section of every category because they're out there. You can easily find it by Google searching Game Awards 2024 nominees, and you'll find them. But we're going to talk about the ones that matter to us. And surprisingly, I don't find anything interesting on the indie game lists to talk about this year, except for one thing. For best debut indie game, they have The Plucky Squire. The Plucky Squire is so buggy, how can it be on the list? Like, it's so buggy, it's almost unplayable. It's so buggy, you cannot, for achievement hunters, you cannot complete the game.
That's bad. That's really
bad. So why is it on the best debut indie game list? Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I don't know what to say.
Alrighty. So let's do this one because we already know the answer. Monster and I have already looked at this list, and we know the answer to this award. And if you think otherwise, you are wrong.
Oh man,
you're just wrong. I mean, there's a close second, but you're wrong. All right. So most anticipated game. They have Death Stranding 2 on the beach. Don't know why that's there. Ghost of Yotai, Grand Theft Auto 6, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, and the winner, Monster Hunter Wilds. Now, I will say this. Probably the one that's most anticipated past Monster Hunter Wilds, I actually say Metroid Prime 4, just because it has been so long since we've had one.
No, I definitely disagree. The most anticipated game, as much as I want it to be Wilds, is going to be Grand Theft Auto 6.
See,
that's going to win. That's going to win the award only because of the how huge Grand Theft Auto 5 is and all the hype and everything surrounding Grand Theft Auto 6.
But Wilds is getting a ton of hype too, so that's why it's...
Sure, but it's not the best-selling game of all time like Grand Theft Auto 5 is. It's not the most played game online like Grand Theft Auto 5 is. It's the community for Grand Theft Auto is so huge. I would love for Wilds to be as big as Grand Theft Auto. I think it will be deserving, and it's personally... And I say this all acknowledging that Monster Hunter is my favorite game series of all time. And, I think it should win.
Yeah.
As my heart is there. My mind tells me it's going to be Grand Theft Auto.
I hope you're wrong. Alrighty. Best action and adventure game. We have Astro, which I believe they meant to put Astrobot. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Silent Hill 2, again with the remakes and remastered.
Yeah.
Star Wars Outlaws, and Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. Honestly, It's between Zelda and Astrobot. I haven't even played Astrobot, and I know that Astrobot's an amazing
Prince
game.
of Persia is really good, though.
I have heard that too, but I think, as far as who might win this award, I don't think it's going to be Prince of Persia. I think it's going to be Zelda or it's going to be Astrobot.
Maybe, yeah.
Best RPG: Dragon's Dogma 2, Shadow of the Erdtree, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Metaphor ReFantazio, and Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth.
I reserve judgment on Metaphor ReFantazio right now, and I've played through about half of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So I can't really say. I guess if I had to pick one of those two at this point, it'd be Metaphor. I love Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but there's just too much side stuff. Metaphor is much more focused in that regard.
I honestly cannot. I can't weigh in on this one because I don't know how I feel about them. Like, yeah, it's just a tough call. All right, best fighting game: Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, Grand Blue Fantasy versus Rising. That's awesome. It's on this list. Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection. I love how the website calls this multiverses, not multiverses, and Tekken 8.
So Grand Blue Fantasy kind of falls into the whole, it's more like an expansion of Grand Blue Fantasy than a new standalone game. So
it is, but they've also given it like a massive graphical overhaul, and
not as
there's a definitive difference between PS4 and PS5 versions.
I'll say this much: I love Grand Blue Fantasy. It's a great game, and the Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection.
That one feels a little weird to put on here, but I get it.
Yeah.
But I think Dragon Ball.
I think Dragon Ball's one, but the Tekken 8 community is super hardcore, and it's got, as far as like 3D fighters, like your traditional stuff, like Tekken was part of it.
Your Virtua Fighter and whatnot, yeah.
Virtua Fighter, Soul Calibur, things like that. The only one that's been able to keep going is Tekken. It's critically acclaimed, man.
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that, like, again, we're looking at it as this year. What would be the best fighting game of this year? And coming right out the gate, I think Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, because there has been a ton of hype behind it.
Yeah.
So that's my pick. Best action game: Black Myth Wukong, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, Helldivers 2, Stellar Blade, and Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2.
The only one of these I've played is Helldivers 2, and I like it.
I don't have a horse in this race, but my vote would be for either Helldivers or Black Myth Wukong. Interestingly enough, little side news story, a little something funny. For Black Ops 6, they actually did something that I kind of applaud. They put in a special emote that mimics Ray Gun's breakdance routine from the Olympics. If you remember, Ray Gun was the Australian competitor who basically cheated her way into the competition, and she was utterly terrible.
They retired now.
Yeah. They took so the Call of Duty folks took her routine and made it an emote. It's kind of funny. I watched it. I was like, oh, that's funny. I like that. So, but yeah, I would say either Black Myth or Helldivers. Let's see, best family game: Astrobot, Princess Peach Showtime, Super Mario Party Jamboree, Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, and The Plucky Squire. Did The Plucky Squire pay money to get put on these lists? I really wonder.
Maybe the group that nominates these games a little biased, maybe.
I think so. I would say Astrobot, hands down.
I love Astrobot. I don't
But
know what I can't say enough good things about Astrobot, and I don't usually play platformers very much.
I have yet to play.
Um,
I have yet to play Princess Peach Showtime. I want to play it, and obviously Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. I've already given my thoughts on that game. They're great, but I think Astrobot, even without even touching it, is going to be best family game.
I'll tell you what, it's the only game that I've played in forever, especially when you get to the challenge stages where my hands were sweating while I was playing it.
Wow.
So, yeah,
Okay.
it's great.
Well, and the final category is best for us is best sim/strategy game. We have Age of Mythology Retold, Frostpunk 2, Kunitsugami Path of the Goddess, Manor Lords, and Unicorn Overlord.
So we both played Unicorn Overlord,
Yeah.
and it's a great game.
Yeah.
Love that game.
Yeah.
Age of Mythology Retold is, I mean, it's still just Age of Mythology. As much as I think it slides in here because of the rules they put out this year.
Yeah.
I think it's a good game. I think it's worth playing, especially if you like the age of like franchise and things like that.
But Unicorn Overlord should win.
I think it's the better game overall.
Yeah.
Although you can't play Unicorn Overlord multiplayer, so the Age of Mythology does have that over it.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think I just think that's it. I think it's.
I can't say
Overlord.
anything about the other games. I have not played Manor Lords, Frostpunk 2, or Kunitsugami.
Neither have I, but it's one of those like you just have a strong feeling about stuff, and I have a strong feeling that Unicorn Overlord should win best sim strategy game.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay. Well, that's gonna be that. We're gonna obviously come back to the Game Awards when we'll talk about it again when it's over, and we'll talk about how much of a ripoff it was, and because we can already see the future. But before we go, because we got one more story, and this one is all on Monster, so I'm gonna let him take care of this one.
So on Kotaku, they put a what to look for in a new gaming TV this Black Friday. I haven't really read it in depth, but as someone who was once an in-home installer and worked in the AV field and is a gamer, I feel like I can speak to some of this stuff and give my opinion. So when they say the first feature is 4K 120 hertz screen is a must, I think it's a nice to have. I think 4K is so prevalent nowadays that it doesn't really even matter. You could walk into a store and they have a bunch of TVs out. You just probably trip over a 4K screen. Unless you're looking for 32 inches and lower, you're pretty much getting just straight 4K this whole time.
Yeah.
And then 120 hertz is, unless you're buying some of the cheapest TVs out there, you're going to get at least one port that has that functionality at HDMI 2.1.
Right. Well, so, and they're starting to work on 8K now, right?
8K was tried at one point, but it's not very popular. There's just not a whole lot that supports it. To get any sort of gaming rig that can take advantage of it, you have to take advantage of like your reconstruction techniques, like FSR2, DLSS, PSSR now on Sony's side, and of course XESS for Intel, to even get playable frame rates, like even like 30 FPS on 8K and on the most powerful graphics cards. So it's a non-issue right now. I wouldn't even care about 8K, so most people don't.
Okay.
And the industry in general is just moving toward more higher frame rates versus higher resolution screens. We're at a point where diminishing returns is really kicking in here.
Okay.
So it says plenty of HDMI 2.1 ports. I think if you have anything that could really take advantage of it, sure, the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X have 120 FPS options on them. Yeah, it'd be nice to future-proof. I think 120 hertz is nice. I think for generally, unless you're like looking to hook your PC into this thing, I mean, you're gonna get it unless you buy like a low end TV. You're gonna get plenty of this stuff. So, kind of like an afterthought.
Okay.
Here's one that I definitely don't agree with them on, and that's the OLED or bust. So, I have an OLED screen, and don't get me wrong, I've said many times that the OLED screen or TV that I have is the best TV I ever bought. And I still believe that if you're watching movies. Here's the fact of the matter: when making a general uh, thing like this, like an observation, when you're using a TV, there's a lot of things that factor into what type of TV you should buy. OLEDs are great, especially in black rooms because you can get true black on them. They're great because their pixel response time is unmatched. That's all well and good. But if you're playing upstairs in a brightly lit room all the time, the thing is not good for that. It's just plain and simple. You want an LCD screen for bright areas. That's just the way I really feel, and I would recommend anybody do. There's local dimming on LCDs now. They can get pretty close to what an OLED can do with that respect.
Mm-hmm.
But you do get blooming meaning light bleed into areas in dark scenes. But if you don't know what you're looking for, you're not going to see it. How else do I put this? I still, granted, I have an older OLED now, but burn-in is still something that I worry about. And I know that you go to all the experts and they'll tell you that burn-in is a thing of the past, and people like Wolf Den have put like torture tests on like the Switch OLED screen, things like that, and it's taken so long for things to burn in. He's had the same image up there. I still just think in the long run, especially if you play games like, say, a fighting game, for instance, where the health bars are always up there in the same place, and you're playing this for hours at a time, I just don't think that's a good idea for you. I very much still in the LCD camp. There's a technology that's in the works that ultimately has the potential to marry the best of OLED and the best of LCD together into one technology. And, I think if that eventually becomes feasible to bring to market, then, it'll replace OLED and LCD, and they'll just be one type of TV, and everybody will be happy. And, we'll see what happens.
The one true television.
They have huh?
Is it the one true television?
Yes, the one to rule them all. It comes with a ring on it.
So I can watch my front door.
Yes, you gotta take this TV to Mordor and throw it into the
That's a track.
Especially depending on how big your TV is, right? They say these nice to have features, and I kind of agree with them. But depending on the class of TV you buy nowadays, they just kind of are there. Mm-hmm. Variable refresh rate, that's great. You don't get screen tearing. A TV operating system, I think a TV operating system is good. But speaking as someone who has used the TV operating system for a while on my Samsung one, for instance, and my LG, eventually, that those chips get old. I mean, my OLED is about 7 years old, and it runs like a 7-year-old chip. I mean, these apps get updated, and they just run slower. So, to a certain degree, if you're using a video game console hooked up to your TV, I'm like, I just use my PlayStation because it runs better.
So, I think what to kind of end this, we should talk about like what you should look for in a TV. And I would like to start by adding, you need to have a good menu operating system. As in, my folks have a Samsung TV, and it took me over 2 months to understand how to change inputs properly, because the way Samsung built the operating system of the television itself was very, very frustrating and inconvenient. So make sure you do your research on that.
Yeah, and the most disappointing thing about this list is the number one reason you should get, if you're going to do gaming, and gaming is the primary thing you're going to do on this television, the number one thing you should look for, in my opinion, in your budget range, is a TV with the lowest input lag. That is the most important thing.
Oh yeah,
you want more responsiveness.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And
even
so,
in indie games, and even AAA, you need to have that response time.
Yeah, and so that's the number one thing. The number two would be, HDMI 2.1. Number three, HDMI 2.1 covers the 120 hertz at 4K anyway. And then, you add past that, everything's nice to have. And whether you go OLED or LCD depends on your situation and use case. I think you'll need to make that determination. So I think those are the big three.
I think number 4 is you need a cup holder. Number five is an engine, like a decent engine. Like, it doesn't take up a lot of fuel. Number 6 is a good seat, and steering be number 7, so you can take it places.
You heard it here first, people.
Dude, I'm telling you, if they made a TV like that, that would sell.
It would sell to somebody, I guess.
I think I just made the TV equivalent of the Homer Simpson car from The Simpsons.
Jeez. But that's it. That's my point. So just to recap, I think lowest input latency possible. Get your at least one HDMI 2.1 input, and then the technology involved, whether you go OLED or LCD, depends on your use case. You'll need to look into that. There's plenty of people out there that will give you like their expert opinions. Again, my take on it, having worked in the field, having owned an OLED TV, I prefer LCD for gaming.
Okay.
It's a trade-off, right? I mean, yeah. I'm giving up deep blacks for comfort, knowing I don't get burn-in. I won't get it.
Right. Okay. Well, that's our thoughts on things today. Let us know what you guys think in the comments down below. We do want to hear from you, and we like hearing from you. It makes us feel heard.
Yes.
Yes. So with that, have yourselves a fantastic week. Have an awesome time playing your video games. And we'll see you in the next one.
Take care.
Later.